assuming that those mechanics or those tactics have to be how Scrum is applied everywhere.
You can't learn when you don't have something done. Plain and simple. All right, let's get right to this one. People are going to adopt Scrum. They're going to make mistakes. And I'm kind of curious what the most common mistakes are. What do we think, guys?
Well, common mistakes. Let's start there because there's many mistakes, but common mistakes, a smaller list. Probably one of the biggest ones that I see happening regularly is that we misdefine our product. And by misdefine, I mean we think of our customer as someone or something other than that customer is. So if I'm a developer and I think of my customer as the QA person, I'm going to do all I can to make my QA person happy. But they're not really the ones receiving the end value that I'm creating. And so what ends up happening is you create product backlog items that focus on your QA person. Your product owner works with a QA person. And you forget about your real customer because you've defined your customer as the QA person. Over and over, we see this happening, especially when you start scaling up. And now you've got 5 teams and 10 teams, and all of them focused on the QA person and not the real person who receives the value that your team creates. So what can you do about that problem? What I would do is start with identifying who the real customer is. Make sure that they're in the sprint review or a proxy for them, for some sort of stakeholder, somebody who interacts regularly with that customer. Make sure that they're there and design your product backlog items around that customer such that you are delivering some form of value each and every sprint. So that would be the first place I would go when thinking about the most common mistakes Scrum teams make.
I'm going to throw one out that I think can be a little dangerous because if you take this advice too far, it'll be a mistake in and of itself. But a mistake I see a lot of Scrum teams make is that they get so focused on the rules or the perceived rules of Scrum. So what I mean by that is I used to sit in an office with a lot of people who were interested in Scrum, and I heard phrases like, "Oh, I'd never let my Scrum team get away with this," or "Oh, you can't write tasks that way," or "This has to be exactly this way," and all that was coming from the way those people had done Scrum before and worked for them, and then implying or assuming that those mechanics or those tactics have to be how Scrum is applied everywhere. And these are really, secondary or tertiary things like how the team writes tasks or how things get divvied up. Not the core things like, yes, you have to have sprint planning. Yes, you have to daily Scrum. Like, I'm not talking about the core piece of the framework. I'm talking about the minutia and the details of how Scrum is applied in a given context, which may not be the same from team to team to team, org to org, product to product. I mean, those things, there's a lot of freedom in the Scrum framework. So I see a lot of Scrum teams losing the forest for the trees and getting wrapped up in the minutia rather than focusing on, do we have a done increment every sprint? Are we focused on continual improvement, things like that, the big things of the framework. So don't get lost in the details. Don't get lost in the weeds.
I'm going to go with the missing out opportunities to learn, and this really is core to empiricism. So the transparency, inspection, adaptation loop that exists everywhere in the framework, and stepping away from the framework for a minute, you still need that in a complex domain, no matter what. And so sometimes teams feel almost like the training wheels of the Scrum framework is good enough to keep them inspecting and adapting, but they don't actually do it. So they're missing opportunities from a time to learn from the product standpoint. They don't have done increments, so therefore they can't learn. You can't learn when you don't have something done, plain and simple. They don't really get into retrospectives with the opportunity to truly learn and do something different to improve. And then do they even measure what they've done to see if it's actually working? Because changes are made, but how do we know those changes made an impact? Don't know, because we're not using empirical evidence. So this whole learning cycle, I think it's unfortunately kind of either discounted or not used to its maximum potential. When people just start using Scrum, they feel safe in that little funnel of all things Scrum, but they really miss the opportunity to learn.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. Did you like what you heard? If so, you're going to love our Scrum classes. See, not only do we talk about these ideas on YouTube, we're also professional Scrum trainers, and we'd love to have you in one of our classes. So if you need to level up as a Scrum Master or a product owner, maybe you need to learn how to scale Scrum or combine Kanban or UX with Scrum, click the link in our description and you'll find a list of our upcoming classes.
If this is your first time to our channel and you're interested in growing in your agility and understanding things like Scrum and other agile topics, then be sure to get started by subscribing right now and hit that alert button. I don't want you to miss the thing.